This is The Run Through. I'm Chloe Mal, and today we're here with Sienna Miller.
All right. Hi, Sienna. Happy Sunday.
Thank you.
We're in the Vogue closet. This is a big moment for many people, but we're just casually on this pink velvet sofa.
As in the Vogue, so that closes and there are more clothes when we're not in here.
Yeah.
And everyone can just help themselves to the shoes.
Well, these are available for shoots, but the manolas have to be approved, like a manola library.
In a temperature controlled.
Not let anyone get their mitts on manolas.
Right.
What is it like fitting for a Vogue cover when you're quite a few months pregnant?
Pretty heavily pregnant now.
How many weeks are you?
I am 31 weeks.
Oh my God.
31 and a bit weeks. It's fun doing a fitting, although in the last 2 weeks I've woken up and I'm like pregnant in my head and face.
What
like
is the exact change that you feel?
There's a slight waddle.
Okay.
You know, there's a when you stand up and sit down, which I'm really trying to get a lid on. And peeing like 18 times a night, which is too much information, but welcome to the real world, people. And I walked around with my daughter yesterday in Soho and I was like, we're going to be in New York, let's go shopping. And after an hour, I was, the lady that was sitting down in every shop.
What are you loving to wear right now?
Big, baggy, knitted.
Yeah, what is
stretch.
Sienna maternity wear?
I've tried to avoid buying maternity wear.
Me too. It's very hard.
It's very hard. I feel like I'm probably at the stage where I need some maternity leggings. That would be nice. I've found clothes in my wardrobe that will stretch, and I have borrowed Ollie's jeans for the first 4 months. I have now outgrown them.
Oh, wow.
I think that the timing of this pregnancy is great. I got to be sort of floaty in the summer and in the good stage of pregnancy was in easy clothes, and now I can just like jumper it up.
Well, I was obsessed with your Vogue World Schiaparelli moment.
It was a good thing.
How would you describe it?
I would have said kind of couture meringue.
Yes, it was a couture meringue with your bump.
With my bumps. Every area that you would want disguised as a woman was disguised beautifully, artfully by this incredibly created, like, masterpiece of art. Harry Lambert was styling everybody who was taking part in the show, and I was doing a little skit. And
oh, yes, you were an usher.
I was an usher, yes. And Harry Lambert, for those who don't know, is a brilliant, very avant-garde creative stylist. And he had sent some options of clothes that he thought would be good. And that was the most exciting / scary. I didn't know I was a kind of bump out pregnant person, but it felt incredibly empowering.
Is this pregnancy style different than with Marlo? Do you remember what you wore when you were pregnant with her?
I think with Marlo, I really tried to stay in my own clothes and it just didn't work. I think I'm just much more conscious now than I was then.
How is this pregnancy different from 10 years ago with Marlo?
It's honestly been so much easier. I have sailed through this pregnancy. Yeah, I don't know whether you're just so perpetually tired being a parent already that you can just manage better with a second baby. But I felt great.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear that.
Until about 6 days ago.
This pregnancy became publicly known when you were on a private vacation in Ibiza this summer. What is it like having...
People take photos of you in a bikini pregnant. Do you know what? It's great. I love it. It was so funny. I'd got through the entire summer and I'd had a very decadent summer of traveling around and being on lots of beaches, and I got away with it. That was the last swim on the last day of the last holiday.
You almost did it.
Thank Christ it was like 5 p.m. and not glaring sunlight, actually.
Is Marlo excited?
To have a sister?
Yeah.
A baby?
Oh, it's a little girl?
Gender reveal by accident.
I was going to ask, but there we go.
I'm having a baby girl. Is Marlo excited? She is now excited. She's like, this was great. Why would we change this? We were the Gilmore Girls, and what if the baby's cuter? And, the normal feelings, which she's very honest about.
How do you hope her experience as a girl and eventually a woman will be different from yours?
How long have you got? No, I think it's really hard to be a young woman in this day and age. I think it's also a lot easier in many ways. So there are pros and cons to both versions. She can self-advocate and she has the word no in her repertoire. And I think in the 90s when I was a kid growing up, God forbid you offend a man's ego by disagreeing or...
Yeah.
And I just don't think that exists at all. And that's wonderful.
Can you describe like Marlowe's family dinners where it's you, Tom, he's now with Alexa,
yes.
Ollie. Does Marlowe know that she has access to 2 of the great British wardrobes?
We tell her. She doesn't. She's never going to give me that. I think she might be starting to cotton on to the fact that I have got an aesthetic and maybe it was appreciated, but she's still like, no. Alexa, she is much more generous too because she's exquisitely dressed and not her actual mother. It's very genuinely very loving and cozy and great.
How wonderful for her.
It's ideal. It's incredible. We're very lucky.
What's been your favorite role that you've played and why?
Sally Bowles in Cabaret on Broadway. Because she is a nihilistic sort of tragedy that sings and dances. And my guilty pleasure is singing and dancing.
What is the most challenging role?
I did a movie called American Woman that was very emotionally draining. And I loved that character probably more than any character. But it was very hard to imagine the loss of a child as a parent, as anyone. I have tended to be drawn to very dark material. My formative youth was intense, very, very intense. And to have an outlet for some of that intensity was probably made me drawn to dark work.
Your formative youth when you were first starting to act or before that?
I think my 20s, my very public 20s.
You were covered so intensely from I was reading about the ages when you were first with Jude Law. I mean, you were 21. It's just...
I know.
Do you ever look back now and think, oh, poor 21-year-old Sienna, I wish I could tell her this?
Yeah, of course. I mean, honestly, it feels like a different life and a different person's experience. It was all so surreal and chaotic that it's sometimes it's hard to connect that that's the same person.
Yeah.
I do have sympathy, yes, for all the women of that moment.
Right.
It was this frenzy before phones and social media, before all of that. I think a lot of people really derailed because of it.
I love Anatomy of a Scandal, and I then remember reading the article about how you could hear your heartbeat in the scene when the infidelity is revealed. And it just made me wonder about how personally and emotionally invested you get when you're doing a scene like that.
I think that in order to successfully achieve an emotional state, you probably have to connect it to things that happened in your life. There was something incredibly familiar about that particular scene and dynamic, and knowing that on the other side of that scene of him revealing an affair was a huge amount of tabloid attention, and it was just very easy to sense memory. Yeah. I was surprised by the fact that my heart started to thump. It's weird, but you really do store. Obviously, you store trauma and memory in your body, and when you can access it for work, I think that's great. Versus it coming out in other relationships. Where have you been?
You have been very vocal about pay equity and earning the same or at least closer to the same as your male counterparts.
Yes.
Has that been something that you felt has been successful? Has there been progress made?
Definitely been progress made, for sure. I mean, I think I'm in an industry where the disparity was enormous, but I think it was more important to focus on how that translates across the world in every industry. And I think that I was very fortunate, and I worked with Chadwick Boseman, who donated some of his salary to get me up to a number that I had asked for a film that we did together, which was astounding. And I've shared that story with many a male actor who have gone very quiet in the aftermath. A lot of it comes down from being able to advocate for yourself, which is something I've had to learn. I think I would have happily done any of the work that I've done for free. And it's been a reckoning to try to realize your own value.
Did that come naturally, or was that something?
No.
Okay. Because, I mean, you famously took on
in
News
that
of the
instance,
World.
Yes, that did come naturally.
Interesting. Do you regret any part of that? Because it just felt like you had to do... And for people who don't know, in 2019, you sued News of the World, or the Murdoch organization.
Was it 2019? It must have been earlier. The
infraction was in 2005.
I think then the News of the World shut down 2000 and something.
I mean, in great part due to your lawsuit, which is kind of amazing.
So I don't regret that. I'm very, very proud of that. I would love to have not had to do any of it, but it does feel like a reclaiming of a narrative, or just taking something on, a Goliath.
What is the worst thing a tabloid has ever printed about you, or the most painful?
Oh my God, again.
I mean, not to
this
make
is
it
really
more-
fun. Happy Sunday to you too. The worst thing a tabloid has ever printed about me, I guess, they hacked my medical records. They blagged them from my doctor and printed that I was pregnant.
I know. I have to say, researching this was the first time I'd ever heard about a blagger.
Mm.
I wondered if when this new pregnancy was revealed, did it have any, not repercussions, but reminders of that earlier breaking of your medical privacy?
I think, in all honesty, they knew for months that I was pregnant. I remember they were emailing my publicist saying, we've heard rumors, but obviously we would never print anything that, we just wouldn't respond. That did feel like a giant step because there was no respect for that kind of sensitivity of information back then. For any woman, it was a very different time.
Is there a way to sort of quiet the noise of the media and just sort of power on in your own personal life? Can you sort of separate the two?
Don't look.
Really?
Yeah.
People say that, and I just find it remarkable.
There are moments where you're aware of something, like my pregnancy, being photographed on a beach when I was pregnant. I just was like, I have to see what that is.
Wow.
But on the whole, you can turn down the noise by not engaging. And I think there can be a tendency, especially on like a hangover, to like read the comments. And it's a form of self-harm that's not healthy.
Sure.
But if you don't engage with it and you don't read it and you don't give it power, it really becomes an irrelevant force.
I have to say, I found it quite shocking after the news of your pregnancy came out that there was a lot of discussion online. Wow, she's having a child at such an advanced age. And I thought, how old is Sienna Miller? I thought she was in her late 30s. And I was like, expecting they were talking about a 50-year-old. What do you think that culturally is about? Is that people aren't familiar with that?
I think that people are comfortable with a way of living that has existed for many years, which is very misogynistic and patriarchal, and like me being the older woman in a partnership with a younger person, or being pregnant over 40 and that's irresponsible, and the poor child. It's such double standards, and I think it's so unquestioned in people's minds. It's just a trite, easy target. But it's absurd. I mean, I was very fortunate. I wasn't necessarily trying to get pregnant. This happened as a total surprise, and biologically, was something that my body was able to do. And I just find that judgment, it's so one-sided and it's so sad.
Do you have different expectations of motherhood this time around? 10 years on, do you feel like you're more realistic, or
I have expectations, whereas I had none before.
Oh, interesting.
I think. I feel much more prepared psychologically than I was before with Marlo. The reality was quite a shock. I was 29 when I got pregnant and I had her at 30, and I just hadn't given it the thought that I guess you can't prepare for it. In my mind, this is going to be the easiest, coziest, sweetest, because I've completely forgotten the reality of having a newborn baby.
I loved reading that British Vogue last year described it as there's something of a Siennaissance afoot.
Yeah.
Does it feel that way to you? Does this feel like a new chapter, a new
I feel like
moment?
Every decade there's a Sienna, I ebb and flow. My plan is to still be ebbing and flowing at 80. I'm excited. I have some really great work next year that I can't talk about. And I am having a baby, and I'm so happy about that. And I do find myself happier and happier the older I get. So in that sense, yes. I've never been particularly able to comprehend whatever perspective people have of me. So if there is a Siennaissance, I wouldn't be able to connect to it. But yes, it sounds like a nice thing.
Sienna, this has been such a pleasure. I'm so excited for your journey now to the Hamptons for your big shoot.
Thank you.
And many, many happy returns of the day with Annie Leibovitz and Tabitha tomorrow.
Yes.
I think it's going to be fantastic.
Agreed.
And goodbye to everyone from the Vogue Closet.